Hi there and welcome to this webinar, which is an introduction to your degree apprenticeship for Level 6 apprentices. My name's Catherine Warner and I'm a Membership Development Officer at the Institution for Civil Engineers. The aim of this webinar is to give you an introduction to your apprenticeship, and it will last for around 20 minutes. I'll be talking about the following. Firstly, I'll be giving a brief introduction to the ICE and the different membership grades that are available. I'll then go on to talk about your apprenticeship. I'll talk about the formal training with the ICE that you'll need to complete as part of your apprenticeship, and then I'll finish with looking ahead to the endpoint assessment itself. So let's start with an introduction to the ICE. Civil engineering offers a broad range of opportunities in many different fields, and it's a great choice of career. So whether you're working in the transport sector, building structures or tunnels, to name just a few, the ICE is at the heart of all that we as civil engineers do. So who are we and what do we do? Well, we're the world's leading civil engineering institution, and a big element of what we do is that we professionally qualify civil engineers and technicians, and this is the bit that we're going to be talking about today. We're an approved endpoint assessing organisation, so if you pass your EPA with us, you are able to achieve a professional qualification all built into the process within your apprenticeship. Our professional qualifications are recognised around the world, so becoming qualified with us will boost your status and open the door to a great career. We have over 90,000 members in 150 countries around the world, which means that when you become a member with us, you'll be able to tap into that knowledge and specialist advice that this provides, and this will help you to learn and develop throughout your career. We have a number of different membership grades, starting with student and graduate grades. We have 3 levels of professionally qualified memberships, and these are Engineering Technician or EngTech, Incorporated Engineer or iEng, and Chartered Engineer CEng. And for those that reach the top of the profession, there is the Fellow grade. Your apprenticeship is a Level 6 degree apprenticeship, so we have built in the requirements for iEng MICE into your endpoint assessment process. The ICE is licensed by the Engineering Council. So applying for incorporated membership through your endpoint assessment with us will get you the letters MICE, which is member of the ICE, and also iEng after your name. The iEng is the part that comes from the Engineering Council. As part of your apprenticeship, you have a chance to apply for a professional qualification, and in your case it is iEng MICE. Getting professionally qualified is usually a 3-step process. So usually people would study for qualifications, and once they've completed their qualifications they will get a job and start to get some work experience. Once they've got the required level of work experience, they will then have to sit and pass a professional review. Getting professionally qualified as an apprentice, however, for you is a streamlined process. You're studying for your qualifications and working at the same time, which means you're seeing directly how the concepts that you learn at university are applied on projects. Once your employer is satisfied that you've gained your qualifications and got the right experience, this point is called the gateway, they will put you forward to sit your endpoint assessment, or EPA for short. The professional qualification is all built into this assessment. Okay, so we've just had a brief introduction to the ICE and the different grades that are available. We'll now move on to talk specifically about your apprenticeship. There are 2 degree level apprenticeships which we are an approved endpoint assessment organisation for, and these are Civil Engineer Degree Apprenticeship and Civil Engineering Site Management Degree Apprenticeship. On your apprenticeship, you'll be studying for 20% of your time and working for the other 80%. You'll get the chance to see how the theory that you learn at university is applied in real life through your work. The lengths of the 2 apprenticeships vary. For the civil engineer one, the typical duration of this apprenticeship is expected to be around 60 to 66 months long, and the civil engineering site management one, this is 36 months long. In order to join this one, you will have needed to already had a level 4 qualification, which is equivalent to the first couple of years of part-time study on the degree, which is why this one's shorter. For both of these apprenticeships, it's expected that you'll be ready to sit your endpoint assessment around 2 or 3 months before the end of your apprenticeship, so at some point in the year after you've completed your degree at university. When you will be ready to sit depends very much on the experience that you've gained at work. We have produced endpoint assessment guidance documents for each one, and you can find them on our apprentices webpage listed there. These are both really useful documents as they set out clearly exactly what you'll need to submit and when, and at the back of these documents is where you'll find the application form. So what does a level 6 apprentice do? Well, the level 6 degree IEng level is all about managing. So, for example, you'll be working towards managing packages of work to make sure that work is carried out on time and to budget. And perhaps you'll also start to manage health and safety aspects. You'll also be providing technical input to projects. So if you're on the civil engineer degree apprenticeship, you'll be developing design solutions for civil engineering projects. And if you're in the civil engineering site manager apprenticeship, you'll be making sure that the designs from the design team are built effectively, efficiently and safely. You'll be working in teams, so you might find yourself working with other people that have different professional qualifications. You might be responsible for managing the work of some engineering technicians, for example, and you might also be supporting the work of chartered engineers. This chart very briefly shows how the different levels of qualification works. You might find yourself working initially in an engineering technician role as you first come into the industry, which will give you a good grounding in the field. You'll find as time goes on that you start to manage work yourself and take on more responsibility for technical aspects and commercial aspects, etc. And this will be a good indicator that you are starting to work towards IEng level. In the future, as engineers start to work towards CEng, they will begin to take the lead on aspects of the project and start to deal with problems that become increasingly complex. And this might be something that you aspire to do in the future after you've completed your level 6 degree apprenticeship. Your apprenticeship has been built around a series of knowledge, skills and behaviours. You can find what these are in the appendices of your EPA guidance document. Throughout your apprenticeship, your training provider and your employer will be tracking your progress against them. When they feel that you're ready, you'll be put forward to your EPA, and at the EPA, your assessors will be assessing you against all of these KSBs. When you have a look at the KSBs, you'll see there's a long list of them, but they can be broadly grouped together into a few subject areas. The first one is engineering principles, followed by engineering application. You'll be looking at management and leadership, commercial ability, health, safety and welfare, sustainability and environment, interpersonal skills and communication, and professional commitment. So the next question is, what is an endpoint assessment? Well, it's the final stage of your apprenticeship and it's an assessment to ensure that you have the skills to perform your job role. This means that you'll be assessed against the knowledge, skills and behaviours that are mapped out in your apprenticeship standard as we mentioned earlier. It's expected that you'll sit the EPA at some point in the year after you complete your studies. And with the ICE as your endpoint assessor, you can apply for IEng ICE as part of your EPA. This is optional, but if you choose to do so, the only additional work is to have 3 professional engineers sponsor you. That's all. The assessment will be exactly the same whether or not you wish to apply for IEng ICE. So why would you want to get IEng ICE as part of your apprenticeship? Well, a professional qualification shows employers that you're highly competent, committed to your career and you work to high standards. This means that you'll be in a strong position when it comes to applying for promotions or better jobs, and qualification with the ICE is recognised around the world. It will also help you to earn higher salaries throughout your working life. Before you can sit your endpoint assessment, you will need to have passed your degree, achieved level 2 maths and English, completed your apprenticeship and met all of those knowledge, skills and behaviours. You'll have needed to complete your formal training with your ICE called IPD, and you'll also need to have completed your CPD records. I mentioned the KSBs a little earlier and explained the range that they cover. I'm now going to talk a little bit about the formal training with ICE that you'll need to complete during your apprenticeship, and then I'll go on to briefly talk about CPD records and what they are. So now we'll move on to the formal training with the ICE. During your apprenticeship, you'll need to record your experience against the KSBs for your degree apprenticeship. This period of gaining experience is called your Initial Professional Development, or IPD for short. The ICE has systems in place to make it easier for you to record your experience, and you'll need to complete one of these schemes before you're able to sit your endpoint assessment. There are 3 options for completing your IPD. The first one is to use an ICE training scheme which utilises IPD Online. The second option is called Mentor Supported Training, and again this uses IPD Online. And the third option is Career Appraisal. I'll now go on to talk about each of these options. So the first one is called the ICE Training Scheme. Your company may have a training scheme that has been approved by the ICE, and if they do, this means that they will be able to provide you with some experienced engineers. These are called Supervising Civil Engineers, or SCE, and Delegated Engineers, or DEs, who will support you with helping to record your experience. They'll help you work out how it matches up against the KSBs, and they'll also be able to sign you off progressively against those KSBs as you go. Your experience will all count, and you'll find that you'll be able to quite quickly build up a good portfolio of work. When your company signs you onto their approved training scheme, you'll make what's called a training agreement between yourself and your employer. This means that they will be committing to getting you the right experience to meet the requirements of the training scheme, and you'll also be committing to take full benefit of the experience that they provide and to keep up with recording your experience. If you're working at a company that doesn't have an approved training scheme, you'll be able to use what's called the Mentor Supported Training option. This works in just the same way as a training scheme, except that you will be assigned a mentor rather than a supervising civil engineer and delegated engineer. Your mentor will again be an experienced engineer and could be someone who works in your company, or they could be potentially from outside of your company. Both the ICE training scheme and mentor supported training use our IPD Online system for recording your experience. Apprentices will progressively add their experience into IPD Online, and their supporting engineers will sign them off one by one as they meet the requirements of the KSBs. As your experience grows, the level of responsibility that you will record will increase, and you'll find that you'll be able to sign off your examples at an increasing levels of responsibility. You'll need to get to the highest level of responsibility in all of the KSBs to complete your IPD. The career appraisal option is different from the first 2 options. It's a route that is generally used by experienced engineers to demonstrate that they have already got the right experience to complete their IPD. So it's about retrospectively demonstrating experience rather than recording it progressively. For this reason, it's unlikely that as an apprentice you'll be using this route. So with that in mind, I'll talk a little bit about using IPD Online. So this applies to apprentices using the ICE training scheme or mentor supported training options. Your company will provide you with structured training designed to meet the KSBs. This means that you'll be working and learning on the job, and might mean that your company will move you around a little to make sure that you're getting the right experience. Within IPD Online, there are 9 sets of attributes which align to the KSBs. Your SCE, DE or mentor will be able to help you work out how your examples of work that you've done fit against them. Every so often, for example every 3 months, you'll need to put some examples into IPD Online to show how you're meeting some or all of the attributes. Your SCE, DE or mentor will discuss with you how they want you to do this, but they might ask you to write a short report every 3 months or so and summarise your examples briefly into IPD Online. Or they might want you to just write all of the details directly into IPD Online. Your SCE, DE or mentor will then review your examples and comment on them. If they're happy that you've provided enough examples against one of the attributes at a certain level, they'll be able to sign that off. You'll find there are 3 different levels of examples that you're writing about. The first level will be called knowledge. Knowledge is one of the ones that you'll be signing off first, and this means that you've demonstrated that you have a basic understanding and knowledge of the area of competence. The second level is called experience, so this means that you'll be starting to achieve the attribute yourself in different situations, working under supervision. And then the final level is called ability at IEng, And this means that you'll be achieving the attribute in different situations. You'll probably be assisting others to do it, and you'll also be working without supervision. You'll need to have achieved ability at ING level in all of the attributes to close out your formal training with the ICE before you can sit your EPA. Built into the process will be regular meetings with your supervisors to check progress. You'll be meeting your SCE, DE or mentor regularly, say every 3 months or so, to review your examples and sign off any that they feel are ready to complete. Every year you will also have an annual appraisal with either your SCE or your mentor to see how you've done over the past year and have a think about what you might need to concentrate on in the coming year. And finally, once your IPD has been completed, you'll have a review with one of the ICE's membership development officers to check that we're happy that you've gained the right experience to start to think about applying for your EPA. So I'll now move on to talk about CPD, that is continuing professional development. And this is about keeping your skills and knowledge up to date and developing them to suit your work and interests. This is something that you'll be doing anyway as part of your apprenticeship. So all of the learning that you're doing at work, on the job, or training courses that your company provides count as CPD. Just bear in mind that CPD isn't about studying for your qualifications. So anything that you do for university that goes towards your degree won't count. It's more likely that the things that you're learning in your work environment will count as CPD. But when you start to record it and work out what does count as CPD, you'll see that the hours really do start to build up, and you'll find that you have much more than the minimum requirement that we ask for. CPD has 2 parts. Firstly, your development action plan. This is a plan looking at the year ahead and thinking about what learning you might need to do in the coming year. You'll need to set out 3, 4 or 5 targets or so of specific things that you want to learn over the coming year. It could relate to things that you want to learn that are relevant to the project that you're working on, or something that you want to learn to help you with your KSBs, or something that you simply want to learn for your own career progression. The second part of your CPD records is to complete a personal development record. This is basically a list of all of the learning that you've done and recording key bits of information like the date, the number of hours of effective learning time, and listing what you've learned. So you'll need to keep this up to date and make sure that you're regularly adding to it. You need to make sure that you're recording a minimum of 30 hours of CPD on your personal development record every year, and you'll need to submit a minimum of your last 3 years' records when you sit your EPA. You can find more information on how to fill in your CPD records in our short CPD webinar, and you can find it on our membership webinars page listed towards the end. If you have a look at the CPD guidance page just listed in the bottom right there, that's where you can find the guidance document for CPD, and that's where you can also find the templates within the guidance document for completing your development action plan and your personal development record. So we've gone through an introduction to the ICE, we've talked about your apprenticeship, and we've talked about the formal training with ICE that you'll need to complete. We'll now look ahead at the endpoint assessment itself. I'm going to briefly explain the EPA process. We will have another webinar that goes into more detail about the EPA coming onto the website soon, and this will go through the submission documents and the assessment day in more detail. But for now I'm just going to briefly talk through the process and the timescales so that you have an idea of what you're aiming for at the end of your apprenticeship. Firstly, your employer will need to confirm that you have completed your apprenticeship and that you've achieved the required level of maths and English. This means your employer must be happy that you've completed all of your knowledge, skills and behaviours, that you've achieved your degree and that you have completed your IPD. This is the formal training with ICE that we discussed earlier. When you and your employer feel that you're ready to apply for your EPA, you'll make an initial submission and indicate to the ICE whether you wish to also apply for your ING at the same time. If you do wish to apply for ING, your 3 sponsors will need to send in their sponsor forms, and they'll need to send these directly to the ICE. Once the ICE has received your application, they'll let you know when your assessment day will be. 3 weeks before your assessment day, you'll need to send in a number of documents. The first one is a written report. Your written report will be 4,500 to 5,000 words long, talking about 1 or 2 recent projects that you've worked on, telling your assessors about your role and responsibilities, what decisions you made, what you based them on, problems that you met and lessons that you learned. You'll need to include some appendices, which will be examples of documents that you've produced at work, and you'll also need to submit a 2-page CV. At this point, you will also submit your CPD records as discussed earlier. On the assessment day itself, you'll start with a 12 to 15 minute presentation, telling your assessors about some aspects of the project that you've mentioned in your report. It's up to you what you put in the presentation, but you'll need to provide an in-depth description of what you've done, highlighting your involvement. Your assessors will then follow with a structured interview lasting up to 50 minutes, where they will be seeking to confirm that you've met the competencies as set out in your apprenticeship standard. Following on from the interview, you'll finish with a written examination. This will last up to 2 hours, and you'll be given 3 questions written by your assessors, and you must answer all 3 in the time. So when will you be ready to sit your EPA? Well, the big question to ask is, have you got the suitable breadth and depth of experience? It's likely that you'll be ready at some point in the year after you've completed your degree, and you'll also need to have got a range of experience against all of those KSBs. Have a sit down with your employer and ask them to help work out what experience you might need to get in order to finish the KSBs. Remember, it's your employer who will confirm to the ICE that they think that you're ready, so it's important that you're regularly discussing your progress with them. So that's the end of this webinar. I've talked you through an introduction to the ICE and the membership grades that are available. I've given an introduction to your apprenticeship and how to complete your formal training with the ICE, and then the processes required for the EPA. I thought I'd finish with a few things that you might want to think about. Firstly, it's never too early to start gathering examples for your written report, so just get into the habit of keeping hold of good pieces of work that you've been doing at work that might help you demonstrate how you've met the KSBs. Make sure you're recording your CPD, so get hold of the templates and make a start if you haven't already. Check out the CPD guidance document and also the CPD webinar to help you with filling in your CPD. If you're getting close to the time when you'll be ready to sit your EPA, then definitely start to practice your presentation skills, and also have a chat with your employer to see if they can help you set up some mock interviews. And finally, if you're not already, then please do become a student member of the ICE. It's free. If you'd like to become a student member, you can do so on our students webpage as listed at the bottom there. Once you become a student member, you get access to a whole host of information that will be really useful for you while you're studying as an apprentice. You can access the world's largest civil engineering library, and you can also watch hundreds of modules on our Learning Hub. You can use our Ask Brunel service. This is a really useful tool whereby if you get stuck on anything at college, you can type a question into Ask Brunel and someone will get back to you within 24 hours with an answer. You can download the digital version of our new Civil Engineer magazine, which provides all sorts of information about what's going on in the world of civil engineering at the moment. You can also get access to the Benevolent Fund. Now, this is a charity that's linked to the ICE that provides support to civil engineers and members of the ICE if they ever get into any difficulties. And finally, you should definitely go and join the Graduates and Students Network. This is a network that is set up to provide events and networking opportunities for graduates and students and apprentices just like you. If you'd like to watch some of our other membership webinars, then you can find them on the page listed here at the bottom. On this page we have the short CPD webinar, which goes into more detail about CPD and how to complete the templates. And this is the page where we'll also be uploading a webinar about the endpoint assessment for your apprenticeship at some point in the future, so keep an eye out for that one. So hopefully that's given you a useful introduction to your apprenticeship. You can find further information on our apprentices webpage, and much more will be added, so keep checking back. If you'd like to find your local membership team, you can find us on the Near You page, and if you have any questions about your apprenticeship, you can contact the membership support email address. You can also contact the team that organises the Endpoint Assessment Days on the EPA email address shown there. Many thanks for listening.